U.S. soldiers. The Al-Assad base is the second largest. It's where many U.S. troops are based in the country. But one thing that they didn't successfully do, and which they did talk about for a long time, was shedding American blood. It is perhaps a good thing they didn't. President Trump has made it very clear for a few weeks now that his red line was the death of any Americans.
That's Fox's Benjamin Hall in Amman, Jordan. Earlier Tuesday, President Trump warned Iran against retaliation.
We're prepared. We're totally prepared. And likewise, we're prepared to attack if we have to.
But Fox's Jennifer Griffin reports from the Pentagon that both sides seem to be looking for an off-ramp to diffuse the tensions. And Fox's John Roberts from the White House says some in the administration believe Iran intentionally avoided harming Americans in their response, which their foreign minister has called proportionate. President Trump plans to speak from the White House in the morning. Reaction from members of Congress, Senator Elizabeth Warren telling a town hall meeting in Brooklyn, New York.
At this moment, my heart and my prayers are with our military and with their families in Iraq and all around the world.
New York Republican Congressman Tom Reed telling the Fox Business Network.
I have 100% confidence in our commander-in-chief and in the White House, in the expertise that is there. They are truly experts in their field, and they'll respond to this appropriately.
No known connection yet, but hours after Iran launched those rocket attacks, a commercial jetliner crashed on takeoff from the international airport in Tehran. It's a Ukraine International Airlines 737 with at least 170 people aboard. Iranian state television says there are no survivors. America is listening to Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel Tumon is now serving your favorite daily specials. Come one, come all. Enjoy your Monday with that savory caron pica, your Tuesday with your one and only candied salmon. Stroll by on Wednesday to try that local-style oxtail caro, or Thursday if you're feeling that pan-crisp pork belly served over roasted sweet potato mash. And don't forget that misoyaki black cod with garlic mashed potatoes on Fridays. Busy at work and still want your fix? Call us at 969-2652 for your takeout order.
Yikes, are those Christmas bills coming in already? Those high-interest credit cards at 16, 18, even 24%? Well, we have a New Year's solution for you. A Bank Pacific personal loan with rates as low as 4.65% to pay off those expensive credit cards. It's easy, it's fast, and it's as low as 4.65% APR.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal credit opportunity lender as low as 4.65%. Conditions apply.
A California Republican congressman has penned his letter of resignation.
San Diego area Congressman Duncan Hunter pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to misuse campaign funds. Federal prosecutors accused him of using more than $200,000 in campaign money on things like dental visits, travel, school tuition. He faces up to 5 years in prison when sentenced in March. He says in a letter to Speaker Pelosi and California Governor Newsom that his resignation is effective January 13th, after which the governor can either call for a special election or leave the seat open until November. Several candidates say they're running for the seat, including former Congressman Darrell Issa, who decided not to run for re-election for his old seat to the north as the district began to vote more Democratic. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Jury selection began Tuesday in the sexual assault trial in New York City of disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein. More than 100 potential jurors interviewed, many moving on to the next round. Weinstein has said any intimate relations he'd had with his accusers were consensual. CNN reportedly agreeing to settle a $275 million lawsuit filed by the family of that Covington High School student Nicholas Sandmann over the network's coverage of his viral encounter with an elderly Native American activist in the nation's capital. Neither side discussing numbers. A Florida man's been charged in the murder of a South Carolina law enforcement officer.
Safety officer Jackson Winkler was found shot to death at a traffic stop Sunday at the Florence, South Carolina Regional Airport, and while the killer fled the scene, police now say they have him in custody. 37-year-old James Edward Bell of Homestead, Florida, near Miami, is charged. He was arrested in South Carolina and is also suspected for an armed robbery in the Florence area. Police say the officer's weapon was taken from him and that Bell allegedly left a 9mm by the officer's body with 30 spent shell casings found nearby. Eben Brown, Fox News.
And in New York, I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Live the a balanced lifestyle. Take Care Insurance offers proven wellness and fitness programs to encourage individuals and families to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle through preventative care, being active, eating right, relaxing and unwinding, and being socially connected. They have the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs for all ages. Join the movement. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram or visit takecareasia.com to learn more.
It's hard to believe, but Security Title is 20 years old. Reaching this milestone is a clear testament to the hard work of our employees, who are as passionate about our work as we are about our community. We are most grateful for the realtors, lenders, attorneys, investors, and the buyers and sellers we serve. They are the reason our doors have been open for 20 years. Security Title looks back with gratitude for the past 20 years and looks forward with optimism to the next 20. Thank you, Guam.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. So long as I got anything to say about it, Real Joe Cruz.
Hear, hear, sir.
All right. So let me take you on a short trip to Wisconsin, Brown County, Wisconsin. Gun owners and Second Amendment supporters in Brown County, Wisconsin have a simple message for legislators in the state. Quote, don't do what Virginia is doing. Several dozen supporters of a Second Amendment sanctuary resolution turned out to support the language at the Brown County Board of Supervisors meeting on Monday, where the Green Bay Press-Gazette reports the resolution received the unanimous backing of the board, but not before they made some changes. The board's executive committee voted 7-0 to recommend the county proclaim its intent to oppose future legislation the county deems would infringe on residents' rights to keep and bear arms. The committee also recommended the county declare itself Second Amendment sanctuary. But members removed the controversial and possibly illegal language that said the sheriff could refuse to enforce future gun control laws if he deemed them unconstitutional. David Hemery, the county's chief legal officer, said such a measure would have violated the supervisor's oaths of office. The language that was stripped from the resolution is a little different than what we've seen in most Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions that passed in Virginia in recent months. The vast majority of resolutions in Virginia have expressed the desire by county supervisors not to spend any public resources on enforcing unconstitutional gun control laws, but doesn't actually direct the sheriff to not enforce any law. The weaker resolution was proposed by Board Chairman Patrick Moynihan, Jr. It's a compromise between the wishes of board members who wanted to protect residents against what they fear will be attempts by the state or federal government to improperly limit gun ownership rights, and those concerned that it would be improper to try to direct a sheriff elected by the voters to not enforce a law that might or might not be enacted in the future. Supervisor Steve Deslayers of Hollandtown proposed the sanctuary measure in December, saying that further tightening of gun laws threatens to take, quote, the most effective weapon away from someone who might need a gun for self-defense. What this is a strong message to legislatures to not do what Virginia is doing. Deslayers said Deslayers, a gun owner. It's counter to the Constitution. Anyone who thinks the Second Amendment is not under attack is naive. Yeah, well, we know that. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers has been pushing for lawmakers to pass several gun control bills, including a red flag proposal that would allow courts to strip gun owners of their right to keep and bear arms before they ever get their day in court. Brown County's resolution, which is expected to be approved when supervisors meet on January 15th, doesn't specifically mention the red flag proposal, but is seen by supporters as a way of pushing back on the governor's idea. If Brown County does approve the resolution, there'll be the Second Amendment sanctuary in the state. Florence County was the first to adopt a similar resolution in November. Meanwhile, the Second Amendment sanctuary movement continues to grow in Virginia, with the city of Virginia Beach approving a pro-2A resolution on Monday night, as thousands of supporters packed the city council chambers and spilled out of the building onto the front lawn. So there you have it, Brown County, Wisconsin. That's the city. The county seat of Brown County is Green Bay. And of course, it's a little town. It's just a little over 100,000 people. But everybody knows about Green Bay, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The Packers.
That's right, cheeseheads.
Yeah. So the one thing about, Wisconsin in general, Green Bay in particular, they have some really rough winters there.
That's cool.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, there was a guy that I knew pretty well, moved from here to Green Bay, and after he was up there for a while, a bunch of us guys on a conference call with him. This is before we had email and that kind of stuff, Got on a conference call with him. How's it going in Green Bay? Yeah, it's okay. You get to go to the Packers? Yeah. Well, tell us, what do you think about those Wisconsin summers? And the guy says, I don't know. I only been here for 11 months. He went on to say, they only have 2 seasons around here, winter and the 4th of July. Now, I didn't live way up there in Green Bay. I lived about 20 miles north of the Illinois line, which for Wisconsin purposes is known as the Banana Belt. Really warm weather down there. When the temperature got up to 35 degrees, you'd see kids riding around in convertibles with the top down. Yeah, well, enough of that. Let's go straight here to Zemi Ikotny. Okay, I've got another Bob. Just to make it clear to everybody out there in an international radio listening audience, this is not me. This is another Bob. So I'm going to take another Bob before I plunge into Zemi Ikotny. Good afternoon, Bob.
Hey, Bob. Yes, this is the other Bob.
Oh, okay.
I was kind of fearful that when I heard the Zemi Ikotny song go off, I was like, oh, no, they've forgotten about me. So my question is, Second Amendment, lately in the paper, I've been noticing that some of our nefarious folks here on the island are getting caught with a firearm, and either with no or an expired firearms ID card, and are being punished with a misdemeanor charge. So I figured a great question to pose you as a former legislator is, how does this not infringe on my right to keep and bear an arm on Guam?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Bob. And I would expect nothing less from another Bob except a good question. Actually, I think it's a third-degree felony to be in possession of a firearm without a firearms ID. It's not that hard to get a firearms ID. You got to pay the fee and be fingerprinted. And let me see. At one time, yeah, your fingerprints had to be sent off to the FBI to run through the the NIC check. But the key word here is infringed. What exactly does infringed mean? And the Supreme Court has not told us. The Supreme Court in two cases, the first case being District of Columbia versus Heller, the second one, McDonald versus Chicago, has said that a person has the right to keep an arm, not bear, but keep an arm in his home for his own defense, for his defense of himself and his family. But we don't have a case yet from the Supreme Court that talks about bearing arms. Justice Scalia, in what I thought was some rather importune language in D.C. versus Heller, said that this is not an unrestricted right. You know, the right could be restricted to felons and blah, 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 etc. So the question is, would that type of legislation requiring that ID card be impermissible infringement under the Second Amendment? And the answer right now is maybe not.
We don't know.
Yeah, but and we won't find out until someone challenges it.
Yeah, because I remember, I think I was reading one of the articles in the Post where an individual had a pistoli in his car, and he had an expired firearms ID, and he was charged. And I thought, well, how is that not infringement? Now, I agree that responsible gun owners and for accountability should have an ID. But if it's expired and I still have a firearm, I shouldn't be charged with anything because of an expired firearms ID.
Well, my suspicion is this, that if that case were charged and went to court, a judge would consider that the defendant had a firearms ID, and if he had a good excuse, forgot to renew it, perhaps that would be a mitigating factor and perhaps could work in the defendant's favor. But, you know, if you get busted for driving without a driver's license, you got one in your pocket, but it's expired, it's still kind of the same thing, Bob.
But we don't have a right to drive.
That's true, but if we're talking about it in that context, then it's an either-or thing. Either you need it or you don't need it. And if you need it, then having one that's expired doesn't quite do it.
So then why doesn't my marriage license expire?
You'd probably have to check with your wife on that one, Bob.
It's just another revenue stream for the governor.
There you go.
That's all. All right. I just was curious.
Well, I'm glad you called, Bob.
All right. Well, you have a good day, and I enjoy your show.
Well, thank you very much, Bob. It's always nice to meet another Bob. Okay, so that was another Bob, Real Joe Cruz. Just don't get confused there. You know, he sounded really intelligent.
At first, I thought it was just an echo. But
Yeah.
then I realized it's another Bob.
It's kind of like when we have the two Jimmys on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, just because the guy sounded really intelligent and made some really good points out there in an international radio listening audience, that doesn't mean it was me.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not the only one that can do that. Here's another Bob that sounded really intelligent and made some good points, too. Okay, let's get back to Zemi Ikotny. Well, the news from the Daily News is the same news. It's no news because there's no editorial. Today we ran Benjamin H. Friedman, special to USA Today. It's time for U.S. troops to leave Iraq. Now, yesterday I had a really good substitute for the news, for the editorial. I cobbed off with another USA Today editorial from January 1. entitled Decade in Review, Marital Norms Erode, and it was a really good editorial. Probably explains why the Daily News, our Daily News, never ran it instead of the kind of junk that they usually run from USA Today, which is way over on the left, Trump bashing almost all the time. So that's the Daily News. Then let's take a look at the Post. And let's see what we got from the Post. Guam's justice system needs to get tough on drunken drivers. You know, I went into a little mom and pop store here on my way down here and saw a couple of guys sitting on the curb with quart bottles of beer in their hands, looking at today's paper, today's Post, and one of them said, "Hey, look at this. Guam's justice system needs to get tough on drunken drivers." And the other guy says, "I'll drink to that." Yeah. Narinta Narayan Lee was only 22 when she was killed in a car crash in 2012. Majesty Relic was driving drunk, and Lee was her passenger. The car slammed into a power pole on Route 3. Now, racing with power poles, these concrete power poles, is one of our favorite sports here on Guam. Hardly a month passes where we don't have a contest between an automobile and a concrete power pole. And so far, the score, as I can recall it, is power poles 242, automobiles 0. Relic, who was 20 at the time, was sentenced in 2014 to 6 years in prison. However, court records show she was released from prison in January of 2016. Wow, only 2 years. She was allowed to serve the remainder of her prison term in installments. On weekends, she goes to prison, and on weekdays, she regains her freedom under what's called work release. Just recently at 3:33 a.m. on January 3, Relic nearly crashed the SUV she was driving into a police car. The officer had pulled over another car for a traffic stop in Hagatnya, court documents state. After the SUV served and barely avoided the collision, police tracked it down and stopped it at 337 by the bridge on Route 7A near the Hagatnya public pool. Police say Relic had bloodshot, watery eyes and a strong odor of alcohol on her breath as she spoke. When asked if she'd been drinking, the defendant said, "Yeah, only 2 beers, though." Court documents state, Relic allegedly failed the standard sobriety test. A subsequent breath test showed she had a blood alcohol content of 0.168, court documents state. When she was driving in the fatal crash, she had a blood alcohol content of only 1.64. Both times, the amount was twice the legal limit. If not for the near collision on January 3 and subsequent quick police response that stopped her, Relic would have endangered more lives in those pre-dawn hours. Well, she still hasn't even finished her sentence for ending Lee's life in 2012. Her January 3 arrest should have been a wake-up call to the court. Hello, Superior Court? Hello, Superior Court. This is Tall Tales calling. Yeah. I have an exercise that you might want to engage in. Gather several books in the chambers of each judge and then set up a target and have the judges throw the book at the target so that when defendants are in there like Miss Relic, the judge will know how to handle the sentence. Instead of immediately, the court system missed a chance to keep our roads safer by setting her free. instead of immediately rescinding her work release and returning her to prison full time because she's obviously not ready to be out in the community again, she was released on a $2,000 performance bond.
Nice.
Yeah, well, that'll cut into her beer money for a while. That's our only hope, I guess.
Yes, sir.
And instead of mandating that she be fully rehabilitated before she's released and then providing her with the support and help to stop abusing alcohol and endangering others, our public servants and justice system release her into the community to keep right on drinking and driving. Magistrate Relic isn't the only one. There are others in our community who have been set free despite a history of repeat DUI offenses in our courts. If someone is injured or killed because convicts with a history of drunken driving are freed prematurely and get behind the wheel while drunk, the blame goes to the court that released them. We're assigning some blame here, folks. Maybe full rehabilitation should be a condition of any early or work release. But as Judge Anita Sokola recently said, we're not doing too well in the area of getting people treatment that need it. Our priorities in our life here on Guam is upside down. Therefore, since our rehab programs can't currently accommodate all those that need their help, maybe we as a community should get our priorities right side up and invest more in those programs to make our island and our lives safer and better. Upside down, right side up. But if you're reading the paper and following along and kind of checking the comments on Facebook, I think the attitude in the community right now is just what I was joking about a minute ago. Throw the book at them. Yeah. Lock them up and throw away the key. Yeah. Kill someone while drunk driving, serve your sentence only during weekends, caught drunk driving again, almost hitting a police car. Sometimes you just can't fix stupid. That's what one of our posters just said. Yeah, that's Maria Fagotgood. Good comment, Maria Fagotgood. So, yeah, I'm going to, I think the post was a little easy on our judges, but I'm going to give them the blue star today. They haven't had one for a while. I don't want them to start the Jones. Okay, so let's see. I've got a mic, right? I have a mic right here. This is another mic then.
Yes, sir.
Right? Good afternoon, Mike.
Afternoon, Bob. Yeah, I'd like to make a little comment on what you said earlier about the judge saying that we need to do more of treatment programs regarding, drunk driving and other treatment programs for substance abuse or whatnot. But as much as the judge sounds intelligent in that area, I like to disagree because there's no program, there is no prayer, there is nothing. Nothing can change people but themselves. There's no program that will help anybody. And the fact that they keep relying on programs, I need this, I need that. This program we need is so that people can change. I totally disagree because there's nothing in this world that can make a person change except for that person. So there's no hope. The person has to make that change on his own.
Well, I've always been one who stumped for individual responsibilities, probably being the best cure for almost all maladies. So I have to agree with you there, Mike.
Yeah, and also the choice of word. I don't know if that was the blue star for the PDN, but the word rehabilitation is misapplied because if you're going to rehabilitate a person, you're putting him back to where he started. But if you reform a person, then you are effecting change. So I guess a grammar error on that part for, I guess, PDN, I believe, or
It was the
I'm not sure.
It was the Post. It's what we'd call a usage error. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Mike. I'm going to go back in here. I've never revoked a blue star before, but based on your comments, I'm going to convert this into a blue star minus. So you have become an integral part of Jemmy Economy. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. You know, if you're going to engage in writing, what you say is one thing, but how you say it's just as important. So, word of advice to the editors: choose your words sparingly.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mike.
All right, Bob.
Yeah, so you gotta not only mean what you say, but you gotta say what you mean. Okay, let's take a short break here, and then I see some been peeking at Facebook, so we'll come back and go into Facebook a little bit before we start the card.
GRMC's Neuroscience and Neurology Department treats a wide spectrum of disorders associated with the nervous system, spine, and brain. Some of the more common disorders include seizures, epilepsy, dementia, sleep disorders, migraine, and stroke, which is one of the leading causes of death on Guam. GRMC's neuroscience team is equipped with the latest technology and the finest neurological doctors. To make an appointment, contact GRMC Specialty Clinics at 645-5500.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
How is your job impacting your health? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll reveal a study that some say is answering that question, and we'll add some changes we'd like to see as a result.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Yeah, so we got James Vega talking about a damn plane possibly shot down. And Nate horns in saying he's checking for the ride. And Gus Gisagas is in Houston now instead of Brownsville, Texas. That's part of our international radio listening audience all the way over there in Texas. So the reason I say international radio listening audience, because we are broadcasting in the United States and in the Republic of Texas. And let's see, we've got Peter J. Santos with a Buenos Dias for today. Buenos Dias, Peter J. Santos. Now, I think this is Pete Santos, although I got confused yesterday. I didn't know if it was Pete or repeat. Yeah, kind of reminds me of these twins that I knew once upon a time, Real Joe Cruz. They were identical twins.
Yeah?
Yeah, one's name was Joyce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, guess what the other one's name was?
Rejoice?
You got it.
Wild guess.
Yeah, Joyce and Rejoice. Okay, so we got Pete and Repeat Santos. We've got Richard V. Leone. And what does the National Guard AG want the Guard to do? I suppose in light of what's going on in Iraq, it's very possible that I think the 294th is in Egypt right now. But it's possible that they could be redeployed to Iraq. Possible. And we got James Howard. All is well. President tweets, I guess we're good, Judge. Yeah, if the president tweets all is well, we're okay. And Jose Martinez, brats and beers. And Pam Duvall says, Buenas, Judge. And then follows that up with, you are the real Bob. So I guess it makes us a match set, the real Joe Cruz and the real Bob. right? And then we had another Bob on the line a little earlier. Chuck Tanner used to go fishing up in Apple River. He used to go there from Quad Cities. That's a couple cities in Illinois and a couple cities in Iowa. He went to Apple River, Wisconsin. Chuck Tanner. I remember back in my youth when the Braves moved to Milwaukee, 1953, they had a hotshot third baseman, Chuck Tanner. I wonder if it's the same guy. He'd only be about 90 by now, I guess, if it's the same Chuck Tanner. Yeah. And then Pam Duvall, yes, we're sending, on firearms ID, I guess we're still sending prints to the FBI if you go apply for a firearms ID card. And Janice Wong has a big smile here. Schmoeville, Your Honor, I had a firearms ID and it expired and I forgot to renew it because I was on meth. Well, son, meth, you say, all is forgiven. Yeah, that's kind of the way we've been doing it, isn't it? And Pam renames one of our newspapers the Pacific Daily Blues. Nate horns in again, not just drunk drivers, everything, meth, food stamps, fraud, etc. And we've got Troy Torres. Holy cow, that's so funny. Okay. And Pam Duvall, what? Work release? How about deportation? And then I already read Maria Fagotgood's comment, but I'll read it again. Kill someone while drunk driving? Serve your sentence only during the weekends? Caught drunk driving again, almost hitting a police car? Sometimes you just can't fix stupid. Schmoeville, our priorities on Guam is not treating people who need help. It's Festpac. Yeah, every one of these miscreants that gets caught drunk driving and doing some of these other things, we should send them to Festpac in July. We're sending 100 now. What's a couple more 100, right?
And give them a per diem too.
Give them a per diem. Put them up in the Hilton Hawaiian Village Hotel.
Nice.
What the heck? And Jose Martinez says a constructive solution here. Perhaps Sherwood ought to be converted into a high-rise incarceration center to alleviate the lack of cells for these offenders. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Because that's one of the problems we have. Our prison is so overcrowded. One has to wonder if judges, at least unconsciously, are thinking, I don't know if I ought to send anybody up there or not. They're so overcrowded. And then we got Pam Duvall. Why even go through with a police report and court costs and times? What a total waste of time. What a total waste. All types of criminals are going through revolving doors, plea deals and all. And then I got Jose Martinez. It's if they get that already, drugs included. Pam Duvall, Pete and brother repeat. Yeah, that's the guys, Pete and repeat. Okay, so much for Facebook. And of course, we're always hoping that you'll come in and post your pithy comments on Facebook. Just to be clear, I don't have a list. I said pithy comments. And if you have an overpowering desire to hear your voice broadcast throughout our entire international radio listening audience area, just dial 671-888-8255. And if you're calling from overseas or Texas, make sure you put a 1 in front of that. Okay, today's card. I got a really interesting card. We start out with GOP senators versus Will Castro, which is where I wound up last time. And then I've got Jim Moylan versus professional politicians. And then Tina versus the settler. And Lou versus Michael San Nicolas. This has been on the card for so long. It just that the caption keeps getting reversed. It's San Nicolas versus Lou, Lou versus San Nicolas. Today it's Lou versus San Nicolas. And then I've got Robert Underwood versus us. And then I've got Lou versus Chelsea Munya-Brecht, also carded as AWA versus the Department of Agriculture. And if we got time, I'm going to continue on with Antonio Gramsci versus y'all. So starting out with Republican senators versus Will Castro. There's a story here in the Daily News. It's entitled, Republican Senators Change Leadership, Nominate Senator Will Castro to be party's delegate. Bet. What this story is really about is the Republicans in the legislature dumping Will Castro, who had been the majority leader. He goes from being the majority leader to just being a senator, kind of vying with Mary Camacho for lack of titles. So the Republicans decided that they needed a different minority leader, and they elected Tello Taitigui. Now, I've explained before that of all these titles like whip and assistant minority leader, minority leader is the only one that has real meaning. For one thing, the other minority members are supposed to look to the minority leader for, guess what? Leadership. So when the Republicans are in caucus, the minority leader presides at the caucus and attempts to maintain some kind of an order, and would present something like an agenda that the minority members could follow. And they have a lot of discussions, and when it's all over, each member is free to do whatever. Are you ready, Real Joe Cruz?
I'm ready, sir.
Yeah, each member is free to do whatever they want. Even though there may be something that looks like a strong sense amongst the members of the caucus as what should be done, if there are 5 members in the caucus and 4 of them want to do one thing and 1 wants to do something else, that's it. But there are high expectations for the minority leader. For one thing, he is the senior member of his party in public office. In this case, when the Democrats control the governor's office and the legislature. So there ought to be a certain amount of partisan leadership on his part. He ought to be an exemplary Republican when it comes down to partisanship. And he shouldn't be double-crossing the other members of his party or working out deals behind their back or doing anything that tends to weaken party discipline. That's the way I see the minority leader and the majority leader, too. But that isn't the case here because, you know, I'm looking at my packet here, and I'm looking at Bill 181. And this is the bill that got smashed through the legislature. This is Tina Rose and Lou's bill dealing with war claims. And it has 3 sponsors, Tina Rose Munya-Barnes, Amanda L. Shelton, and William M. Castro, the minority leader. Now, of all of the things that the legislature has done, this legislature has done, Bill 181 is by far the most partisan. You know, this is the one where the governor, loyalty to the governor is put to some kind of a test, because the governor has really rolled it out for this one, has bet a lot on it, and has a lot riding on it. So you could expect the speaker and other Democrats to go along with the program, but you don't expect the minority leader to co-sponsor this bill. William M. Castro, better known as Will Castro, Will with only 1 L. So I have a suspicion that maybe when the other Republicans saw this, they said to Will, You can go to hell, H-E-L, only one L, just so that he wouldn't have his feelings hurt. Yeah, and then on Saturday, we saw the workup of the Friday press conference, and the Post really laid it on the members who were at the press conference because they all hogged the mic instead of letting the Manamku talk. And if you looked at the picture, guess who had the key position in the picture right up close to the governor? William M. Castro, better known as Will Castro. So, you know, this makes Will Castro, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a Republican, I'll admit it. In fact, I will not only admit it, I will front it. Yes, I am. I am a Republican. I get pretty angry at the Republicans, but I am one. So here's Will Castro, a Republican, basking in the limelight of Lou and Tina's dog and pony show and this useless Bill 181, which is guaranteed to do only one thing, pander to the Manamku. And there's Will Castro right in there, basking in the limelight. Now, I could speculate that this might have something to do with the minority dumping him as the minority leader. I don't know if that's the case or not. But I will wind it up with this. I darn sure hope so. Okay, next item on the card. Jim Boylan versus professional politicians. And if you've been watching TV or if you read today's paper or listened to the radio, you'll know that Jim Boylan has introduced Bill 265. And Bill 265, if it were enacted into law, would enact the Citizens Legislative Reform Act of 2020. A very well-needed piece of legislation. I have said, and this, of course, makes it very credible, I've said this over and over again, that if our government is ever going to get on the right track, if we're ever going to be able to clean up our government so that it provides an effective, efficient government operating within the rule of law, providing basic government services on at least a break-even basis, the legislature's got a lot of work to do to clean up our government. And I don't have to spend a lot of time talking about what I mean by clean up. I think there's a pretty general understanding of what I'm talking about. But the only way the legislature is going to be able to do that is if the legislature takes the moral high ground, which they don't have now, and they haven't had for a long, long time. I will give you the Juan Pat 10, collaborating with Ray Tenorio back in November 21 of 2014, where the acting governor called him into special session, no public hearing, no certificate of the speaker, an hour's worth of not even debate, and they passed a bill that gave themselves $25,000 per year retroactive raises and got it out of the legislative building that same day to the governor, who signed it that day, and the money was in their pocket in 24 days. You know, the legislature lost so much credibility on what Andrew Bainham, who is part of the Tall Tales International Listening Audience Posse, what Andrew Bainham so aptly named the great salary smash and grab. So the legislature lost a lot of credibility there and has done almost nothing to get it back, because in order to end that egregious affront to the public purse, it took a long time, and a lot of senators, one of whom is the speaker right now, fought it tooth and nail. And since that time, they haven't done anything to cause us to have a good feeling about their approach to their duties to benefit all of the people instead of just themselves. This legislature, like others, there have been junkets. who was it that just went to Malaysia? Senator Regine Lee. We had 3 people heading off to, I can't remember. I ought to keep a list of all of the junkets that people take. But it's not a good situation. And you look at the legislative budget and the staffing pattern, and I've explained it to this when people ask me, well, why is it that the same old folks are the only ones that run for legislature? And by the same old folks, I mean a group of about 200 or 300 people that I would call the political class. They're in the administration, they run for the legislature, et cetera. They're always hovering around in that atmosphere. I'll give you 2 really good examples. Will Castro and Senator Muñoz. What's Senator Muñoz's first name?
Tina?
No, the other one.
Luis.
Yeah, Luis Muñoz. Yeah. Both of them were working for the administration in election before last. And because they were working for the administration in positions that were exempt from the Hatch Act, they were able to campaign for office and still draw their government checks. Now, this is an ongoing phenomenon where people who are working for the administration continue to draw their checks as they run for office. Something of an advantage compared to the average Joe running for office and taking time off from his job probably to run for office. So that's what I would mean by the political class. Okay, let's take a short break here before we come back to the halftime show.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
A homeowner's policy protects much more than just your house. It also protects you against claims from someone being hurt on your property. If a visitor is injured at your place, how much are you covered for? The smart thing to do is get the answer today.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Most talk shows only give you selected opinions from one side of the political aisle.
You know, I don't like what you're doing. It's bad. Everything is bad. It's all bad, 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 bad.
We do it a bit differently on The Ray Gibson Show. We bring you the newsmakers from the left, the right, and the middle in order to give you the full view of the issues that affect all of us here on Guam. Right or left, we bring you to the middle of the conversation on The Ray Gibson Show, weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on Guam's only news talk superstation, 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So, peeking at Facebook again here, we have Ishmael Velez who says, like 7-Up is the un-cola, Will Castro is the un-leader, the un-Republican, the un-loyalist. And then he comes back and says, untrustworthy. Yeah. So I was talking about, the political class. And I'm just going to leave the political class there for a minute. I notice I've got our Carl on the line. What do you want to tell me about the political class, our Carl?
I just got a question for you. This bill that the Senator Boylan is proposing, I'm very interested in it. But, I don't remember you talking about what you think the best number of senators would be, because now it's being proposed to go up to 21. Some people have even proposed, it going to 30. I'm kind of leery of that because I think for future legislatures, it would be too tempting to revert back to a full-time legislature, and then we're right back where we started. So anyway, I'm not going to hang on that long because I'm on a cell phone and it's a little low on load. But I'd appreciate it.
Are you the one they call Jimmy? Jimmy tells me that that he has a pay-as-you-go cell phone, and that's why he doesn't think he should be on hold too long. Well, anyhow, Carl, given the performance of this legislature, I would say the ideal number of senators is 0. But I suppose we have to have more than that. It's unfortunate that the conversation has been distracted by talking about 15 or 21 or something like that. The really important thing is the structure of the legislature and the other parts that Moylan's bill picks up. 2 30-day sessions, $100 stipend, a legislative research and service bureau. If all of those things were in place, either number of senators could function in a much more efficient fashion than we're doing right now. But it's unfortunate. It's kind of the shiny objects theory of debate, that people tend to go to the shiny objects before they deal with the real substance. But the real substance of this bill, the Legislative Research and Service Bureau, the 2 30-day sessions, and the $100 a day stipend. Okay?
Yeah, I personally think, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we've got more of a problem of quality of legislators, and the solution to that is to invite more people with records of achievement to run for senator, and that would kind of help to solve the problem. Anyway, Bob, I'll be listening to your comments offline.
Okay, Carl, thank you.
Bye.
So, yeah, that's my theory, and I agree with Carl. If we went to a part-time legislature, I would hope that we could get people of affairs, people who have had lives outside the world of politics, who know stuff, who've done stuff, who can do stuff, who could seriously apply themselves to being senators and devote their full-scale intellect and intention to the job, and not use it as a means of feathering their own nest. And as I told Carl, if we had the proper structure, and we can appeal to a broader scope of the segment of the population, as opposed to just the 200 or 300 folks in the political class, I think we're going to come up with a much better government, one that operates in an effective, efficient manner in accordance with the rule of law, providing the basic governmental services on a break-even basis. Now, the difference between 15 and 21, I'm going to sound really sarcastic here, but I wonder if we were able to round up 15 people who we're all happy with seeing in the legislature right now. We seem to have a hard time rounding up even 15, but maybe if we open the doors to a wider talent pool, then maybe 21 becomes more possible. Now, some would tell you, well, with 21 people, you're spreading out the control. It makes it less easy for a few dominant individuals to control the legislature. So it would be better because the power wouldn't be concentrated in a small number. I would tell you that with 15 people, there are fewer places to hide. Watch senators under the current situation when it's time to vote. Okay, let's break for that big halftime show, and we'll come back to time to vote.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Iran responds. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. 5 days after Iranian General Qassem Soleimani was killed by a U.S. drone strike, Iran has responded militarily.
It was a ballistic missile strike on Iraqi bases which housed U.S. soldiers. The main one, the Al-Assad base in western Iraq. It is where most U.S. troops in the country are based. But those ballistic missiles didn't land near the area of the base where the Americans were held. They landed elsewhere. And there are some people in the administration suggesting that it may have been a purposeful miss.
That's Fox's Benjamin Hall. In Amman, Jordan, the Pentagon still doing its damage assessment, but reports no Americans have been injured. President Trump tweeting all is well, says he'll have a statement from the White House in the morning. The attacks triggering new criticisms of the president.
A lot of reaction coming in, and not surprisingly, a lot of blame being directed at President Trump, including by Joe Biden. At a private fundraiser in Philadelphia, just as reports of the missile strikes were coming in, Biden pointed to the U.S.'s exit from the Iran nuclear deal and the president's order to kill Qasem Soleimani, saying, quote, some of the things he's done and said in the meantime have been close to ludicrous, including threatening to bomb holy sites. And I just pray to God as he goes through what's happening as we speak that he's listening to his military commanders for the first time, because so far that has not been the case.
Fox's Garrett Tenney. Wyoming Senator John Barrasso tells Fox News at night, though, such criticism should be aimed instead at Iran.
It were the continued escalations over the last number of months, with 11 attacks in the last 2 months and an attack on our embassy.
176 people have been killed in the crash of a commercial jetliner in Tehran. A Ukraine Airlines 737 went down shortly after takeoff from Tehran. Most of the dead are Iranian. Iran state media claims it was a mechanical problem. America is listening to Fox News.
People come to Chili's for a million reasons. For happy hour, date night, birthdays, or just because it's Tuesday. But if you ask us what brings people into our restaurants time and time again, is that Chili's moment. You know the one. When you eat so much you want to fall asleep at the table, or when you meet up with good friends and it turns into a party. At Chili's, moments like these matter, and we want to make more of them. So there may be a million reasons to Chili's, but all you really need is one. Chili's, savor the moment in our new location in the Tumon Sands Plaza 2nd floor.
If you've ever struggled for breath, you know what a scary experience it is. Whether you have asthma, emphysema, COPD, lung cancer, or another respiratory illness, the right medical treatment makes all the difference. GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic has the latest technology and respiratory equipment, staffed by world-class pulmonologists. Make an appointment today with GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic and start breathing easier. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Arraignment is set for Wednesday morning for the estranged husband of a missing Connecticut mother.
Fotis Doulos was arrested and charged with killing his wife, Jennifer. His bond is $6 million. Doulos was in a child custody battle when his wife disappeared last May. Doulos' girlfriend, Michelle Traconis, is also being held on the same count and bail as a third suspect.
Kent Mulwiney, charged with conspiracy to commit murder, also with a court-set bond of $2 million.
Fotis Doulos' attorney, Norm Pattis, says it's good these charges are now public.
And now we get to address the proof, and we are confident about our case.
Gernal Scott, Fox News.
3 national refugee resettlement agencies are asking a federal judge in Maryland to block an order from the Trump administration that allows state and local governments to turn away refugees. The agencies argue the order illegally conflicts with the Refugee Act. Another tariff war is looming for the U.S., this time from Europe.
French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire saying the US and France have given themselves until later this month to try and resolve what could turn into a costly dispute. The US is threatening tariffs on French imports, including champagne, cheese and handbags, and France is threatening to match that with duties on American goods. This over a French move to tax large American tech companies like Google and Facebook. The French minister calling the US threats unfriendly, inappropriate and illegitimate.
Inapproprié et illégitime.
In London, Simon Owen, Fox News.
Facebook says it's banning so-called deep fake videos, stepping up efforts to fight online manipulation. The company says it's beefing up its policies to remove false but realistic video clips created with artificial intelligence. But Facebook says the new rules will not affect parody or satire videos. Volcano in Alaska's Aleutian Islands erupting Tuesday, spewing ash 19,000 feet into the air. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News.
Want to grow your business? Start a new venture? Or stay ahead of the competition? You can. With Docomo Pacific Smart Business Solutions tailored to your specific needs and ambitions, you can do it all. Partner with a network with best-in-class network coverage, state-of-the-art communication platforms, and a team dedicated to providing you with premium support. Call 688-2677 to start your journey to success today. Docomo Pacific Business, delivering your future today.
The Points NFL Pick'em contest was a huge success. For the past several weeks, competitors have been giving their best guesses on weekly NFL football action, and it's been a lot of fun. Be sure and tune in Friday, January 10th, while we pretend to talk about sports for the grand prize winner reveal. The winner will be in studio to pick their choice of a brand new phone from GTA. Many thanks to all who participated in the contest, and especially to our sponsors, Current Guam and GTA.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Another great halftime show. Marching band, cheerleaders, synchronized card sections, etc. And while the show was going on, Schmoeville, who is giving the poet laureate of Tall Tales, Andrew, some competition, has penned a verse. And here's how it goes. Together we stand, divided we fall, unless you're Will Castro, who Republicans he wishes to stall. A member of one party but loyal to another, doing all he can to please the queen, the nurse, the mother. A little bitter for losing his position, guess being congressman will feed his ambition. Though not selected by his party, he has taken the opportunity to distance himself from Boylan, an act of mutiny. Yeah, let's hear it for Ishmael. And then Mingo Ree chimes in and says, if we want to attract a more broad spectrum of candidates, the election laws process need to be revamped too. The two-party system limits folks who probably stand in the middle. Well, I can see that because the way the primary, in order to get to the general election, you've got to get through the primary election, and right now the only way to do that is to be a Republican candidate or a Democrat candidate. And, of course, to expect a full-time legislature to ever change that, probably wishful thinking, because if there's anything that the incumbents want to do, it's protect incumbency. And if there's anything party leaders want to do, it's to protect party discipline. So it may very well be that we have a chicken and an egg process here. It may well be that only a part-time legislature, a citizens' legislature, would take it upon itself to reform the laws so that one needn't commit to either a Republican or a Democrat primary. Maybe, maybe not. Now, I know there's a way to construct a party ballot so independents could run, but nobody has beaten a path to my door saying, Bob, show me how to do that, and I'll introduce it. And, you know, I have, I'm not shy about drafting legislation for other people. I drafted one that Clint Rigel introduced It may actually go somewhere sometime. And I did draft a bill that would prohibit the government of Guam from going out and looking for an abortionist. You'll recall when Lou, the mother and the nurse, discovered that emergency that we had last fall, where we hadn't had a reported abortion for like 7 or 8 months, and since we hadn't had any reported abortion, she wanted to deal with the emergency by recruiting an abortionist. So I can do that, but right now I think we would be well advised, Mingo, to concentrate on Jim Moylan's part-time legislature bill and see how much support can be ginned up for that, because it's, as I see it, the only way to reform this government. That is to take it out of the hands of the professional politicians and put government in the hands of ordinary citizens. So Bill 265, now you can bet dollars to donuts that people are going to come out and oppose the bill, and I haven't seen any comments from anyone in the legislature, but I would assume that the newspapers will go around and stick microphones in people's faces, newspapers and TV stations, and say, what do you think about this? And I expect to find an avalanche of opposition. But I'll give you this clue. The more a politician opposes the idea of part-time legislature, the more desperately it shows that we need a part-time legislature. And those who vigorously oppose a part-time legislature are probably the worst offenders under the current system. So there's a lot here in Jim Moylan's bill. I'm going to stop discussing it for now and sum it up by saying it's extremely important, and it's a nice piece of legislation and extremely important, and one that we should all get behind. And if it doesn't pass this time, it ought to be the central campaign issue for the election that's coming up in November. It ought to be as much a make or break as the make or break on the WANPAT 7 after the salary smash and grab. Okay, next item on my card, pretty interesting. This is Tina versus the settler. Now, Real Joe Cruz, I've given you a quiz on this before as to who the settler is. I always preface this by saying, you know, settler is a pejorative word. It's a nasty thing to call somebody. The last thing you'd want your neighbor to do is say, get out of my yard, you dirty settler. Because a settler, in the eyes of the separatist, is someone who was not born here and came here to settle here as a colonizer, which is probably just about as bad as any creature on the face of the earth, right down there crawling around with the snakes. But that's not the way I'm using settler in this context. This time, the settler is a person. Do you know who that person is, Real Joe Cruz?
Rory Respicio.
You got it. Yeah, and I refer to Rory as the settler because you'll recall on his first meeting with the board of directors of the port, he wanted to settle a YTK case. He wanted to appoint a task force to settle the Port 7 cases. He wanted to get rid of Mike Phillips, who may have been in the way of, was obviously in the way of settling any of these cases because he maintained that they could all be won. That's Rory the settler. So I have an article here from the Post, and it reads like this. Port worker rehired under confidential settlement. Another former Port Authority of Guam employee has made her way back into the agency, but details behind the condition of her return are being kept secret. Now, I'm just going to stop here for a second and remember Joanne Brown, the former director of the court, said all this is Rory and political payoffs. So now we have a secret agreement bringing Leon Guerrero back to work on January 6th. Port legal counsel Joseph McDonald, who conveniently replaced Mike Phillips, could not say if she would be receiving back pay due to an undisclosed settlement. Leon Guerrero was one of several employees fighting their termination years ago over their reported involvement in an allegedly fraudulent workers' comp claim by former port marketing manager Bernadette Stern-Mano. Until recently, Leon Guerrero was fighting her case at the Civil Service Commission. The port board, led by Chairman Francisco Santos, voted to authorize the submission of settlement terms to Leon Guerrero in late December. Moreover, facing litigation with some of the other port employees, the board authorized McDonald to explore settlement and draft agreements. Port Deputy General Manager Luis Baza was granted authority to receive agreements and comply with their terms. Now, it's the Deputy General Manager and not Rory, because Rory said he wouldn't be talking about these things because he had recused himself. So when I sent Rory a sunshine law request asking for his recusal, what he sent back was just a note to the Civil Service Commission saying that in his absence, Connie Jo Brennan Shinohara would be representing the port. That's Rory's idea of a recusal. It's not a recusal. In fact, it isn't even in effect anymore, since Connie Jo Shinohara quit the port, ironically, just before the board voted these settlements, voted the authority for the settlements. There were some issues that kept a Leon Guerrero settlement from moving forward on December 26. The port and Leon Guerrero filed a but on December 26, the port and Leon Guerrero filed a stipulated judgment of settlement at the Civil Service Commission. The parties jointly stipulated that the terms of a private, when we're talking about the port, a public agency, a private undisclosed settlement agreement shall be entered as the judgment of the Civil Service Commission in the termination of the appeal. Quote, the settlement agreement shall remain undisclosed unless and until either party shall in good faith seek enforcement of the terms of the settlement agreement or otherwise is obligated to disclose pursuant to law or lawful order, the stipulation stated. According to McDonald, the Civil Service Commission signed a judgment of dismissal on December 30. So that's been 8 days ago. The agreement was entered into earlier than that on December 26. Prior to Leon Guerrero's case, the port had reinstated Human Resources Manager Francine Rocio, who was awarded back pay. However, Rocio was reinstated pursuant to a CSC order and not a confidential settlement agreement. Port management, let's see. Yeah, and then at the end of the article, Port General Manager Joanne Brown was critical of the port pursuing settlement with former employees. What they're essentially going to do is bring these employees back to the port, reinfect the port with their actions, and compensate them quite substantially with ratepayers' money. That's what I see, and to me, this is nothing but a political payoff, Brown said. So a confidential settlement agreement, to settle this case. Now, I saw this morning, and I loaded the nasty letter software into my desktop, and I penned off a sunshine law request to Rory, and it reads like this. Reference the January 8 article from the Daily Post, Infra. You are required to email me no later. I'm sorry, I didn't send this to Rory. I sent this to Tina Rose, and let me explain why I sent it to Tina instead of Rory. You'll recall when the news broke about McNench and his settlement agreement. McNench entered into a settlement agreement with the university. The records show that he was paid $10,000 for something, but no one had been able to see the settlement agreement until McNench started to kvetch about not being able to make it public. McNench went to court asking that it be made public. The district court judge denied it. And Tina then got her skivvy doors all bunched up and said, the law says that there can't be any private settlement agreements and that they have to be sent to me as speaker. And no one sent me that settlement agreement. Tina was quite upset about this. So when I saw this, I figured Tina must have, when Tina found out, or Tina must have gotten this settlement agreement. And so a FOIA to Tina ought to cause her to send me that agreement so I could read it. And I'm sure everybody out there in our international radio listening audience is interested because this sort of thing comes from the ratepayer's pocket, comes from all of our pockets. So this is what I sent to Tina. Reference the January 8 article from the Guam Daily Post, Infra. You are required to email to me no later than close of business January 15 all public records relating to documents transmitted to you by Rory Respicio or the Board of Directors of the Port Authority or any officer, counsel, or employee of the Port Authority relating to the settlement described in the Post article to include, but not be limited to, documents required to be transmitted to you pursuant to 5 GCA Section 6206C and 10102D. So those are the sections of law that say that if there is a settlement, it's got to be sent, among other things, got to be sent to the speaker. So when Tina gets this, I'm expecting that she'll jump on this like a duck on a June bug. And she will be as vigorous in her approach to this as she was in setting up the dog and pony show for Bill 181. In fact, she may even do another dog and pony show. You can get some really good press here, Tina. Tina Rose-Muñoz Barnes is for public disclosure. The public has a right to know, and Speaker Barnes wants the public to know about these secret settlements. So you can get a lot of really good press out of this, Tina. Only one thing wrong. When it was McNench, we weren't dealing with a Democrat insider like Rory. So I'm wondering, will you be as vigorous in your approach to this matter with Democrat insider Rory the settler as you purported to be concerning the McNench settlement? We're going to be watching this. So as you were, January 15, Tina, I'm expecting to see that copy of that settlement roll up in my email inbox. All right. Next item on the card is Lou versus Mike San Nicolas. You know, what else? And, you know, when the dog and pony show first came up, it was headlined in the card, Lou and Tina versus the news cycle. And I complimented them on a very well done dog and pony show. And I said, if you do it right, you should be able to control the news cycle well into next week, which is this week. And here we are on Wednesday. And because, you know, Lou beat Mike San Nicolas to the punch on Saturday, he was forced to respond in his State of the Territory, in his address to the legislature Monday night, which didn't hit the news until Tuesday. And now we've got Lou coming back defending against Mike's remarks. So Lou is getting a tremendous amount of earned media out of this. And once again, I credit this to Carlo Branch, who came over as a policy analyst. I see the deft hand of Carlo Branch standing behind Janella Carrera, who is the titular director of communications. But I didn't see that kind of performance until Branch came along. And now we've got Lou versus Michael San Nicolas. Delegate, and this is what it says. Delegate Michael San Nicolas' comments on local efforts to pay war claims received some harsh responses from the governor's office and even the legislature. And here's a quote from Lou. "We will not ask any survivor to wait one more day than necessary," noted a statement from Governor Lou Leon Guerrero and the Lieutenant Governor. Well, of course not. But a very well-worded statement. We will not ask any survivor to wait one more day than necessary. Nicely worded. No one would ask that. But the implication here is, of course, that somebody else is making them wait one more day than necessary, but Governor Lou will not ask any survivor to wait one more day than necessary. Going on to say the federal assignment of claims process is already part of federal law. That's the process by which we will be repaid. Yeah, which I've been talking about all along. Whatever influence Guam may have in Washington, D.C., we hope it will be used to help this process, not hurt it. So it's kind of a confession there that, you know, the claims process is part of federal law, but we hope it will be used to help the process, not hurt it. Now, who is that aimed at? Michael, of course. For months, there has been a political tit-for-tat as Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes and Senator Will Castro and Amanda Shelton worked with the governor to pay reparations to World War II survivors. Their efforts followed San Nicolas' efforts in Washington to fix a technical error in former Delegate Madeline Berdalio's war claims legislation that would use Section 30 money to pay Guam's war survivors reparations. In a press release sent out on the same day of San Nicolas' address, it was announced that Castro would be running for Guam's delegate seat in Congress as a Republican nominee. It was also announced that he was no longer the minority leader. During his speech, San Nicolas was critical of local elected officials' efforts to pay war claims outside of what was already outlined in the federal process, which required a technical fix to allow war claims to be paid out. According to Adelup, about $23 million in Section 30 money has already been set aside for war claims. Additionally, Adelup has identified about $14 million in local funds. And again, that's not additionally. The 14 is part of the 23. Daily News, as you were post. Adelup and the Speaker's office efforts to rely on a memorandum of agreement between Guam and the federal government, but the agreement has not been approved as of Tuesday. The governor said she is very confident there will be an agreement. The delegate shared his doubts that such an agreement will be approved by officials in Washington. In light of all the challenges we had to overcome to pass H.R. 1365 in the House, it is very plain from my perspective that any alternative attempt to pass another federal measure to reimburse local expenditures is not going to succeed. And you're pretty much familiar with the rest of what San Nicolas said. And then San Nicolas instead proposed repealing the local war games law and focusing on getting the federal legislation H.R. 1365 passed. Okay, we got the seventh inning stretch coming up, and then after the seventh inning stretch, I have a real treat for you. Real Joe Cruz, I have a real treat for you. I've got another Joe on the line.
Nice.
Yeah, so we'll come back from the seventh inning stretch to another Joe.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mescla. Try one of their featured specials for January. SoCal-styled 2-pound surf and turf burrito. Tasty strips of certified Angus beef and succulent shrimp rolled into a flour tortilla with red rice, guacamole, cilantro lime sour cream sauce, salsa fresca, and cheese. Served with a spicy roasted chili salsa for only $17.95. Try it today. Available in Agutya and in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
So here we are, center field, Wrigley, as you were, center field bleachers, Wrigley Field in Chicago, and I'm looking around the bleachers here, and it looks like I'm in the Joe section, right here in the center field bleachers. Over here on my right, I see the real Joe Cruz. Hello, real Joe Cruz.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. And then over here on my left, I have another Joe. Hello, another Joe.
Hey, Bob, you're very good at describing what seems to be a show of force or a standoff, so to speak. It's almost like one of those WWF wrestling matches where the two wrestlers are matching each other's strength. Arm throw for arm throw and hold per hold. Test the strength, so to speak. But in this case, it's politics. So it would seem as though Governor Lulian Guerrero is taking a page out of President Trump's playbook, so to speak, where no media is bad media. No press is bad press.
Well, as the old saying, there's no such thing as bad press. Yeah, good.
As long as she gets her face time, and so to speak, and the genius behind the scenes would be, as you say, Carlo Branch.
That's the way I see it. I don't have any inside information, but I'm putting two and two together here, and the whole dog and pony show, the whole 181 dog and pony show has been very well done from a public.
Carlo Branch is, in effect, Lulian Guerrero's. I'm trying to think of the guy that George W. Bush had. He always had the whiteboard up. The advisor. I'm sorry, his name fails me right now, but
Karl Rove, maybe.
There you go, Karl Rove.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, same name. As a matter of fact, Carlo Carlo Rove brand. You know, there are no coincidences, Uncle Bob.
That's true.
So anyway, it would seem as though that Lily Guerrero is playing a master's chess game here. She's setting herself up for a re-election campaign, and it's nothing personal. It's just that Delegate St. Nicholas he just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, so to speak.
He happens to be the target, and she's looking for her sharpshooter's badge.
Well, yeah, there you go. She needs to have her ticket punched, and he happens to be in that category of punchable.
True enough.
So to speak, but he doesn't particularly like being the beating boy. Pun intended.
There you go. Now, whether it's chess or poker, I'm not sure, because Lou has a very weak hand. But she has a very weak hand on the war claims. But the way she's been placing her bets and continuing to raise the bet back to San Nicolas, she's probably bluffing, but she may very well win the hand anyhow.
Well, I mean, I think for Delegate Nicholas to survive this, he's going to have to find a way to try not to take this too personal. Well, if it be he's just trying to get it accomplished. But the question has to be, if it turns out the way he says it might turn out, unfortunately, right? Does he get all of the blame, or does any of it get assigned to the team of Governor Lou Guerrero and Speaker Munya Barnes for jumping on the wagon, so to speak, at the wrong moment and destabilizing the court?
Well, as I explained yesterday, when it's over, if San Nicolas's bill passes and the checks come out, in the minds of an awful lot of people, it's going to be because of Lou and what she did in her dog and pony show. Right. If it all turns to ashes, then obviously Lou and Tina are going to try to blame it on San Nicolas. And today Tina released a statement saying something along the lines of, if there isn't any threat, and if there is smoke there, it's because San Nicolas started the fire. So they're already. So really, it's his best interest. It's in his best interest to try to be as pleasant as he can while holding his ground, and just point out maybe not find a way to get his own Carlo brand, so to speak, and find a way to communicate with the governor, and it seems that, hey, you kind of owe me one for this, whichever way it turns out, because I got you a lot of press time, and maybe you could help me out in the future with my campaign. But I don't know if they're going to see it that way. Hey, the last question I want to ask you there, Uncle Bob, is for Republicans, if you don't really consider them a real Republican, right? You've brought up that they're called rhinos. Is there such a thing as someone that's not exactly up to specs as a Democrat? What would they call them? Dinos or? Well, there are actually two kinds of Democrats, and they're both dogs. You have yellow dogs. You have yellow dogs and blue dogs. Here's a yellow dog.
So they're not particularly liked by Democrats.
Here's a yellow dog. If you ask a yellow dog Democrat how he's going to vote, this is what he'd say. I reckon I'd vote for a yellow dog if you were a Democrat. That's a yellow dog Democrat. And a blue dog Democrat is a moderate Democrat. But nowadays, the blue dog Democrat is about as plentiful as the dodo bird and the unicorn and the abominable snow creature. I don't think they're, you'd have to send out huge expeditions to find one. And I doubt that there are any. Right? Yeah.
Okay, Bob. Thanks for letting me share with you, and I'll keep listening.
Okay, another Joe. There we have it, another Joe. So we've had another Bob and another Joe today, Real Joe Cruz. Okay, so this is a slinging back and forth of brickbats between Lou and the governor. And then we had Clint Rigel. I certainly support his move to get war claims passed in the Senate, Senator Clint Rigel stated. But he wasn't sure about repealing what was Bill 181, which is now public law. I don't know if we'll do that or not. Something to think about. He had a proposal to use the funding instead for Chamorro Land Trust, but we'll have to see how that would work. I think Pito Terlahi must be his speechwriter. When Pito was asked about a bill to recall the mayor of Jonia, Pito said, well, I don't know. I'm going to have to see what the consensus of the members are. Therese Terlahi, I appreciate the work he's doing on war claims. I also appreciate that he brought up Agent Orange. She said, saying both issues are among those that would benefit the people. Senator Mary Torres said her concern with Bill 181 was trying to get a better understanding of the ramifications of passing a local bill when the federal bill was underway. I guess Mary doesn't listen to tall tales. Senator Tello Taitigui was critical of the delegate, saying it's unfortunate that Delegate San Nicolas tells us to put politics aside when he clearly doesn't intend to follow his own advice. For instance, he waited so long to lobby U.S. senators to act on H.R. 1365. This is why the legislature in Adelup, despite some reservations, moved swiftly last month to pass Bill 181. The bill that you were so upset about, Tello. Then she says, moving forward, it's critical that the delegate get the U.S. Senate on board with 1365 so that all adjudicated war claims can be paid soon. Wow, I never thought of that. Tello's got a mind like a steel trap. It's critical for the delegate to get the U.S. Senate on board with H.R. 1365 so that all the adjudicated claims can be paid soon. Wow. Part-time legislature, anyone? You know, in some respects, I think we already have a part-time legislature. It's just that we're paying everybody full-time salaries. Okay, next I have Robert Underwood versus Us. And this is a column from an op-ed piece by Robert Underwood that appeared in the Post. And I have to make a short educational presentation here indicating how, in one respect, Chamorro is really superior to English. Chamorro has two words for we, hame and hita. Okay, we only have one word. Now, in English, if I'm talking about you, Real Joe Cruz, and something that the two of us ought to do, I might say, Real Joe Cruz, we ought to go down to Mescla for dinner because it sounds so appetizing, right? That's you and me, right?
Ooh.
Yeah, hungan, eh? So that's hita, right?
Hita.
Yeah, Debidi Tahano para Mescla. Hago de Guajona, y dos, right?
Yeah.
Hita. Now, if I were to bring my wife into the conversation and say, Real Joe Cruz, you know, it'd be nice if my wife and you and I went down to Mescla for dinner because you make it sound so appetizing. My wife's not here, right? That would be, oh, I'm sorry. Let me start over again. I confused myself here. If I said, Real Joe Cruz, you know what I'm going to do when I'm done with the show? I'm going to get a hold of my wife, and she and I are going to go down to Mescla because you made it sound so good. That would be hame.
Oh.
See, that's us, but it doesn't mean you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So a way of describing it is we inclusive is hame, we exclusive is I'm sorry, we inclusive is hita.
Yeah.
We exclusive is hame. Now, there's no good way to make that distinction in English, except for certain parts of the southern part of the United States, where if I wanted to use the hita form, I would say weans. Weans ought to go down to mescla because you made it sound so good. But weans don't use weans much here in Guam, but that would be the way to do it. So that's the difference. So I'm going to read Robert's column here, and if Robert were telling me this and if explaining this to me in English, there wouldn't be a hita anywhere in the description. It would be all hame. Okay, before I get into hita and hame, I've got a break coming up here. We're going to be entering the 7th inning stretch, and right after that, I'm going to put Frenchie on the line. So make sure you stay tuned.
Hi, welcome to this ad for new Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. How do you want it?
Cheer squad. Woo! Go Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. Woo! Give me a ham and jack slider.
Ham and jack slider.
Give me an Italian spice slider.
Italian spice slider.
What's that spell?
It doesn't really spell anything.
New Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. Go sliders!
Subway, make it what you want.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so we travel now to the grandstands at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. We just watched the horses being shooed into the starting gate, and the starting gate opened. We saw first call, and now we've got Frenchie on the line. Good afternoon, Frenchie.
Good afternoon, Bob. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, Frenchie.
I just wanted to chime in on the San Nicolas versus Little Lou. It's an endless source of fun to watch them bite each other, but I think it goes back deeper than we think. If you remember when Michael was senator, he was not really towing the line of the party all the time. He was always a man of his own, and a lot of time embarrassing the Democrats and refusing to kowtow to the dictate that came from the party. And I think you had a lot of people, especially in the Lou and Gutierrez little cabal, that were in total shock when Michael took out Madeleine. They really didn't expect that. I know a few Democrats around the island that are pretty high up in there, and talking with them before the election, that was a non sequitur. They couldn't even imagine that Madeleine would lose, and that is part of the issue. But I think really another way to look at it is looking at it as far as a generation gap. You have Lou is really surrounded by a lot of the old guard from the Gutierrez administration, and I was not living on island at the time, but I was visiting, and as far as I can remember, and you can chime on that for me, is the Gutierrez administration was probably one of the most controversial and divisive administration we had seen since basically we could elect a governor on Guam. And they had a lot of heavy-handed approach to a lot of the issues, and if I remember, they ended up in court quite a bit. Versus now, you have a Blue Dog Guam version with MSN, which is interesting because he has his own little nickname, MSN, on the internet. It's what a lot of the people call him. And there is really a gap between that younger crowd in the Democratic Party that is more conservative than the old guard and probably less into the patronage approach of the thing, more like let's do things right, versus Lou and all the corrupt people that surround her. And I think that's at the core of the conflict there. And when you see, Lou a lot of time doesn't attack. She has attack dogs. It's Tina Munya Bond, it's Robert Underwood, which Robert Underwood is a very nefarious character there. He's using his gray hair and his little tie, and he's trying to sound very reasonable and approachable, but actually he's probably one of the most vicious attack dogs that Lou has in her little closet. And Madeleine so far has been kind of absent. We haven't seen her. Now, does that mean it's age? She was not the youngest bird in the coop, or did Michael find a lot of skeleton when he find those empty dossier in DC? So I don't know, but it's a lot of food for thought. And I think when you see Candid News and how they're backing up MSN, you see a little bit what's coming. And even though Lou and Tina have come up with a lot of smoke and mirrors on that Mamamco issue, I don't know if they can push the skeleton back in the closet, and I think that's a big danger for them too, because people are seeing more and more. They are not buying the whole kit and caboodle story that little Lou is pushing out there. What do you think?
Well, it's a very good, shrewd analysis, and a couple of things I'd toss in there that kind of weigh in to substantiate what you're saying. When St. Nicholas didn't sign the loyalty pledge with the other Democrats, I think that angered a lot of them. But of course, it made him a lot more attractive to the Republicans, and it may have.
and also the non-aligned voters.
Yes.
Kind of the infamous non-partisan voters.
So it's possible then he must still be punished for that. And then with respect to Madeleine, remember how Madeleine badmouthed San Nicolas after he was sworn in.
Oh, yeah.
And even went and communicated with some people in Congress. Don't deal with this guy. You can continue to deal with me. Remember that?
Yeah. I definitely remember that one.
And that may tie into a couple of things. Envy would be one, and then the other is the generation gap that you're presenting. And I think you're right. I think that if we were to ever find a blue dog Democrat on Guam, he would be under 40 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of ironic in a way.
Yeah, it's a reverse of what it should be.
Yeah, because usually blue dogs are more like older white males,
Yeah.
But in this case, it's a younger sharp guy, and I think a lot of the younger voters are catching on that, and it's kind of interesting. The cannibalism in the Democratic Party could be a good opportunity for the Republicans if they ever wake up of their coma that they are in right now.
Yeah, if they ever started acting, all of them started acting like Republicans, but, we saw over the weekend that that's a big order.
It's kind of a joke. Actually, I was talking with a couple of friends that hail from off-island and are now living on Guam, and they all have the same complaint. They're all GOP members in the U.S., and they cannot even get a phone call back when they call the GOP to see what they can do to help here on Guam. And so I thought that was kind of an exception, maybe because of what I'm blogging around, but actually it sounds like it's more of a modus operandi. You have a few people that like to keep control of whatever little kingdom they have. is kind of sad.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that one, Pierre, you know, but of course I've got my own little kingdom here called Tall Tales, and I'm going to guard it very jealously.
Yeah. Very well. Well, thank you for the time allotted, and just wanted to give my 2 cents on this.
Good analysis. Thank you very much.
All right, you guys take care.
All right, so
Bye-bye.
long. So, Pierre weighs in with what I thought was a really good analysis, kind of going below the surface of Lou versus Michael, right? And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Again, going back to San Nicolas not signing the loyalty pledge. You remember what a fracas that caused. It even cost the late Joaquin Paris, may he rest in peace, to come out with his political guns blazing. And but it was a shrewd move on San Nicolas's part, as per our chat with Frenchie here, because it endeared him to the non-aligned, the non-partisan voters, the folks who hadn't decided which way they were going to go. San Nicolas, who was appeared to be independent compared to Madeline, who was old-fashioned, old guard, Democrat, partisanship, patronage politics all the way. And then Frenchie also says that he senses that the younger Democrats are not so much into the old patronage politics as the older Democrats. And the stories right now are going around are that the Leon Guerrero administration, if you are a Carlista, you have a pretty good shot at winding up somewhere in the Leon Guerrero administration. And that Carl, of course, was a master of the patronage politics game. I would say during the time that he was in politics, but of course, Carl will always be in politics. You know, that's just his nature. So let me see here what I've got on Facebook here. We got just a couple of minutes to go, and I want to save Robert Underwood versus Us for tomorrow. I want to lead off the program with that tomorrow. And let's see. Somebody says, I love it, the Republican coma. That was Frenchie's words. The Republicans have a golden opportunity if they could only arouse themselves from their coma. And then try being a lifetime Republican in the RNC and what they completely ignore. Governor Little Lou LG doesn't have the support of the war claim survivors. There's no known organization of war claims recipients. That's true. But I maintain that to the extent that the war claims survivors have been influenced by anything that's happened in the last year, it's probably Little Lulu. Culminating in her dog and pony show on Saturday, and if you saw the quotes that ran in the media, an awful lot of the old folks think, "Oh, I'm so glad that Governor Lou got in here, so that we're going to get our money now because we're old, and we're dying off pretty quick. I'm so happy that that Governor Lou is doing this for us." When really Governor Lou isn't doing anything except getting her picture and her name in the paper. And Michael San Nicolas is the only hero in the whole story, certainly not Madeline Bordallo. So we'll come back tomorrow with Robert Underwood versus Us and another exciting edition of Tall Tales featuring Bob, and with the possibility of another Bob. The real Joe Cruz, and there's always a possibility of another Joe. So check back tomorrow so you can see who the cast will consist of.